All right, so أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Welcome to Receiving Nur Weekly Quran Study. We're continuing to study Surah 32, al-Sajdah, the prostration. This is our fifth session. Inshallah, Dr. Yamina will lead the session, and as usual, we're welcome to join in with our comments and questions during the session, toward the end of the session, as you like, but it would be great if you could share. I think we'll go ahead and maybe start with our assignment. Dr. Yamina, shall we do that, or?
Inshallah.
So our assignment was to notice the acts of rububiyyah, acts of tadbir around us, meaning do we see signs of God's taking care of things, arranging things, governing things. So let's start with sharing. If anybody wants to share, please go ahead. You unmute yourselves, and if you could also just share your name. I think to start with myself, some of the things I noticed most was related to myself, my body, like waking up from sleep. It's an amazing process, and it is a well-arranged process. And that was something that I noticed. Things like digestion or rain. These were some of the things I noticed around me as part of Tadbir. I also watched a short documentary on elephants and life of elephants from National Geographic, and that also had very interesting things that were new to me, that these elephants are moving in a desert area that has water that's at the side of an ocean, one of the rare desert areas, and they find their way towards water resources within the desert, and then they are linked to other species. So for instance, they eat the very, very hard trees, and then that enables the smaller species also to eat these trees because they digest it for them, and so on. So it was very interesting how each thing was connected. So there were these animals who were in the shore, seals, and then they have lots of babies, and some of these babies are caught into the ocean, and they can't swim. I mean, they swim, but they don't have enough energy to swim. So some of them drown, and then they end up dead in the shores, which is perfect for the jackals coming from far, starving in exactly that season, and they actually eat these seals and then leave. And there's a kind of constantly, these species were linked to each other. They all live in this environment that's extremely hot, but they were all given different seasons, different processes to eat and find food, and different ways of accessing water. There's this little bug, maybe some of you may have heard. This bug is in the desert. I forget its name now, but it stands in a particular way towards the south, or a particular direction in a particular way, so that over time it condenses water from the moisture. That moisture is condensed from its back, and it goes right into its mouth. Like it's just incredible. All of these, that documentary was also helpful in thinking about tadbir, governance, and arranging of the things by God. And then the other thing I thought about was fire. The way fire is the way it burns and it warms, it is a sign of tadbir. So anybody else who would like to share?
I can go next.
Thank you, Natila.
Well, I thought about fire too for a bit myself, how it burns, but then sometimes doesn't burn, right? In Prophet Ibrahim's case. Anyway, but then, you know, my looking on my own, you know, story these days, I lost my voice for a couple of days. So today is back. It's not, you know, fully yet, but alhamdulillah, much better. So it made me think about the human voice. And then I thought, you know, I'll pick that one as a sign of tadbir, as an ayah for the tadbir, for the assignment for this week. So we take it for granted, you know, the days that we can speak. And then I looked a little bit more into it, right? So the sound, you know, each of one has a very distinctive voice, right? And it's made by using three parts. Well, kind of three parts of our, you know, it's the lungs that pump, you know, the air, and then this air goes through the voice box, the larynx, where the vocal cords are, and then out through the articulators points, you know, meaning the tongue, the palate, the cheek, the lips, which all articulate and filter the sound that emanates, you know, from the larynx. But subhanallah, so every, you know, all of this, you know, we can describe again, you know, how it is, but it's all just air moving through the things. So it's just amazing, right? So the air, it just moves and just produces, you know, the voice, right? You know, so unique in each one of us. And the muscle of the larynx also, they adjust the length and the tension of the vocal folds, to fine tune the pitch and the tone in each one of us. Also, the vocal folds, they are capable of producing highly intricate arrays of sound through which we, you know, communicate different feelings, emotions, we express emotions. We can understand, you know, also somehow about the age of a person, the gender of a speaker. So subhanAllah, you know, it relates to our breathing, you know, it's also related to our heart rate, to the blood pressure, and probably to so much more. So all of this is, you know, as a source of, as a sign of Allah's, you know, knowledge, power, and wisdom, and regulating, and a miracle that happens, you know, to us whenever we, you know, speak, for us that we're, you know, capable, able to speak, right? So that's what I pondered, I think, for today's assignment. Thank you.
MashaAllah, that's great. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Those of you who just joined us, we are sharing our homeworks. We had the homework of reflecting on divine governance and regulation of things this week. Anyone else? If you are speaking, you need to unmute yourself. Anyone is speaking? And I liked, Natila, the way you highlighted the interconnectedness, because when I thought of, when you said three things for voice, I was like, okay, 3 organs, lungs and voice box, but then there are only 3 categories. In each of them, there are many things, tongue and cheeks and lips, and then everything is connected. Like the lungs are connected to the rest of the system. So it's another example of how to make one thing, all the other things are weaved in to produce a sound, and to be able to control that sound, you need the whole physical being of the person, as well as emotional.
Indeed. And then, what we do most of the time, just, we just speak, right? But alhamdulillah, so many things, subhanallah, when you look closely, there's so many things going on. And then when you lose, when I couldn't make any, any sound, like you're opening the mouth, you can form them, but nothing was coming, right? So people cannot hear, let's say them on the phone or something. So subhanallah.
Subhanallah. And of course, the airwaves also, all of that should be part of that regulation and governance, because we speak and then the airwaves are not carrying that voice and carrying it to the ears of other people, and then their capacity to process it and so on.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah.
And then you take it on the receiver side, you take it even further, right? The hearing, and then what goes on the other person, and then
Yeah. SubhanAllah. Anyone else who wants to join in to share examples of tadbir? Okay, so then if not, we will turn to Dr. Yamina to lead us in tonight's session. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Thank you for sharing. That was profound. The more we reflect about it, I mean, there is so much to reflect about. And part of the reflection is first, we know we have the information, and then we take that information and we present it to the heart. And the heart is at awe of what's going on. And the heart starts feeling all those interconnections. And the more we reflect on that, the more we prostrate before the creation of the glorious creator, subhanallah. So last week we stopped at, I think it was ayah 5. We were told that the command, the amr, the divine command descends from God. And we saw that the divine command descends from God, and the implication or the results of his command that manifests in his creation, in his khalq, ascend back to him. So everything descends from God, everything is sent from him, the whole creation, the Quran, the Ruh, everything. And then they fulfill the purpose of their creation, and the main purpose of the creation looks to eternity, looks to the beautiful names of God, looks to Akhirah. It mirrors, as we saw in various passages in the Quran, it mirrors wajhullah, the countenance of God, that aspects of things that look to the eternal beautiful names of God. And so that's the aspect that looks to eternity, that ascends back to him. So what is important is to realize the khalq, the creation, is the result of the divine command, amr. the be and it is, kun fayakun. And so the creation, the world of creation, does not exist and cannot exist separately or independently of the divine command of Amr. And if it seems to exist on its own, it's only the illusion, our illusion when we are in ghafla, we are unaware, we are mindless. And aware and mindless of what? When we are in ghafla, we are unaware of the alam of amr, the realm. Because when people are stuck in ghafla, they have not yet uncovered their true identity, which is the ruh, the spirit that God breathes into us. So they live more from the ego, the lower self that is stuck into the creation, into the khalq, and doesn't see that the creation has a purpose, has a meaning, and points to something beyond it. We talked about it in the very beginning. That's how the surah started. About the ayah, and the function of ayah is to show something else, to indicate something else. It's like language. Language carries meaning, and the meaning has nothing to do with the scribbles that we scribble. The scribbles are a means, a vehicle to the meaning that are carried, the meaning that unfold in the words, and for the creation, the meaning that pertains to the unseen, the realm of the unseen, that pertain to the beautiful names of God, to his rububiyah. So when people are in ghafla and they are stuck into the creation, the world, and they don't wonder where everything is flowing from and where it is flowing to. And because of that, or maybe, well, it could be understood in both ways. Because of that, or because when people are in ghafla, they avoid transience, they avoid accepting or confronting the reality that the world is transient, that life is transient. Everything in khalq, everything in this world of creation, of being created, is transient. It doesn't last, it's impermanent. And that avoiding transience is because it seems scary. It seems scary because they don't know the meaning of transience. But when we don't run away from transience, because in the Quran we are asked to reflect, to observe that there is transience, to accept that first before we can move on. We cannot find the meaning of life if we are not standing in the reality that everything is transient. However, it is discomforting to remain there with transience, is discomforting, and it is the discomfort of transience that may lead people to run out, to avoid it. Or if we stay with it, as we are told in the Quran, then it will yield us to find out what is beyond it. And so when we don't avoid transience, when we don't run away from it, when we accept its reality, however discomforting it may be, in the beginning, especially when we're unaware yet of its meaning, of its purpose, then we are made to realize means the meaning, we are inspired with the meaning. The inspiration is a descent, something is coming to us, and we are inspired with what the Quran tells us that transience is the window, it is an ayah, a window like, or a door onto permanence. It is through impermanence that we find permanence. So impermanence, transience, is an ayah to the eternal realm that deep down all of us long for. It is because we realize that we truly are made to dislike transience and impermanence, like Ibrahim alayhi salam says, "La uhibbul afilin," I do not like that which sets. That he started looking for something that does not set, someone who is eternal. It is then when we stay with that discomfort that we realize that the other side of the coin, on one, our dislike and discomfort with impermanence is because we have a need for permanence. We long for eternity. And this is how the ayah functions. The ayah is the dynamic relationship between opposites that indicates something beyond. If we are looking for it, if we are listening, if we are paying attention. And this is when our awareness starts growing. We start becoming aware of something within us that in the beginning it seems like it's something within us that's longing for eternity. Eventually we will realize that's who we are. Everything else is passing, coming, going. Our thoughts, our emotions and feelings, they change, they come and go, but there is something that's always there. And then we start identifying with that, with the spirit, with the ruh within us. And that's how we actually can start making the distinction between the realm of khalq, of creation, which our body is part of. It changes, it perishes. Our thoughts, our emotions are also always changing and coming and going. And there is the ruh that's always there, that is witnessing all this. It is the witness that witnesses divine oneness. It is the witness within us that knows its Rabb, that becomes aware of its Rabb, when it becomes aware that it is abd, that it is totally dependent on that someone, and it is dependent on his creativity. And this is possible because the ruh is directly from Amr. It is directly from the divine command, as we are told in the Quran, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي.
So do I understand this, what you're saying? So we are really pained and worried about transience when we don't see that this whole flow, things coming and going, constantly changing, is actually coming from the Amr. And so
we don't know it's Amr in the beginning. It's coming from somewhere and going somewhere.
Yeah, so we don't realize that. That's why
we realize that there is an unseen realm. And the command, divine command, belongs to the unseen.
Yes, but it is. But on the flip side, it means, which I think is exciting, that when we realize that this is coming from God and going back to God, then the transience doesn't hurt, because we know that it's coming from eternal, going back to eternal. And you're saying that, so to be able to perceive that, we need to live in the ruh level, because ruh has been gifted that capacity to go above the flux of things coming and going and notice that
and in order to get there, we need to first. Yes.
yeah, so what I am hearing is that it isn't just that we turn away from the flux, go beyond the flux, but also we see the flux things coming and going. We see their true origin and true place of return, so we don't find it as painful.
We start seeing things for what they are. Transience is an ayah. It is speaking. In the beginning, it's like we're seeing some scribbles and we don't like them. Let's say not scribbles, but like we don't know about signs, traffic signs. If you see that danger signs, it's scary. We say it's scary, we don't like it. Yeah, but it's because it's telling you something. It's done on purpose. So we start seeing the aspect of things, the ayah aspect of things, the aspect of things that is speaking about God, speaking about the beautiful names of God, speaking about the unseen, the eternal realm. So transience, although we don't like it, that dislike is not when it is meaningless, when there is no hope, when it is the end in itself, like how do you call a road that has no an impasse, then it is very, how do you say?
You mean dead end?
Yeah, like a dead end. Then we run away from that feeling because it reminds us of, it brings in us a feeling of despair, a feeling of helplessness. But now transience becomes, we still don't like it, but we don't like it in itself, but we like it now. We like it for its meaning, because when we see transience, now it's the door for eternity. So it doesn't bother us. The transience, the aspect that we dislike becomes very small, and the aspect that looks the true purpose of its being there becomes what we see. It's like, you may not like the writing of someone, doesn't matter. What is it saying? What is the note saying is what matters. And so,
and that flow also can become refreshing, because somewhere
it brings good news. It's especially for the ruh, it is good news. It is the link, the connection to what we long for, to permanence. It is the reminder. Transience, it is the ego part of us that doesn't like it, but the ruh likes it because it is a constant reminder of permanence.
and also, how about the part of changing of the mirrors is also
What changing of the mirror?
transience, things passing, and
there is a flow, as you
the flow keeps moving, like
because if it was one thing and transient, it would mean nothing. It's transient.
One thing goes and one thing, like babyhood has its own beauty, then it goes, but then childhood has its own beauty, and it goes, but youth has its own beauty, and it goes, but maturity has its own beauty, and old age has its own beauty, and then death has its own beauty, because we come a guest into the new world. So this is this also part of understanding transience in a new light, that transience becomes
I don't know, I have not thought about it that way, but we talked about it last week as the creation unfolding into steps, because that's the only way we can recognize rububiyyah and order, and we can
Hmm.
make sense of the beautiful names of God.
Like I remember many years ago, maybe a decade ago, we had a conversation. I had a conversation with you, and one of the things you said that stayed with me was that when things come and go, if you can focus on not that they go, but then they come also, so that they are replaced by other things, you will feel that the sadness uh, will will decrease, and you will actually have a joy that this goes and the other one. Don't focus on just what's going, but also what's coming. So when I heard your earlier comment, I thought of that. Like if we can live in the level of ruh, then this flux of things, even separation, even death, even the leaves falling out in the winter, all of that becomes part of a larger. Um, as Sayyid Nursi says, it's like the changing of scenes in a movie. Even if you love a moment in the movie where these two people are reconciled, they hug each other, they're so happy, but you love that scene, but it's okay for the movie to not freeze there, and then the story keeps moving to other climaxes and other moments. So
as you said, we need to be more aware in order to be able to focus on what's coming to us, because when we are unaware, when we're in ghafla at the level of the ego, we are not aware of anything flowing or coming to us. It seems that I worked for something, I went, I got it, someone gave it to me. We're totally limited by the world of cause and effect. But we see what's leaving, not because of any awareness of our part, because the leaving is painful. We only are become aware suddenly, like wake up from that deep sleep of ghafla, when things we care about leave us because of the pain of separation, not because of some awareness of on our part. So that's not really being aware of the flow of the flux of things coming and leaving.
exactly.
But that pain of separation is a rahmah. It is a grace from God, waking us up. Like some of us have to wait for something very to someone dear to die or something to really question what's going on. But some of us can wake up through small pains of separation. But then when we start seeing things as for what they are, as ayat, when we start deciphering and understanding the meaning of that, then we start being more aware that things are coming and leaving. For instance, yesterday, today, tomorrow, even time is flowing, a new day, new people, new things, new whatever level you look at it. And then we can start focusing on what is given to us, what is flowing into our life, our world, rather than what's leaving. So things start making more sense. And these are all practices to enhance and increase our awareness, inshallah, because Iman needs awareness. We need to ask for it. The reflection, this studying the Quran, reflecting on the creation as we are told in the Quran, are all asking for our Iman to increase. As Iman increases, our ihsan, which is an awareness, will also increase, inshallah. And then we start perceiving the world differently, and therefore experiencing it differently. And then we start thinking about it in a different way and feeling about it in a different way. Everything is tied to each other. And this is possible because the ruh from the divine command, from our Rabbs, min amri Rabbi. It recognizes its Rabb, it recognizes its Rububiyyah, the activity of the Rabb, which is the disclosure of the different names of God in the process of khalq, of creation. It recognizes it as coming, it recognizes the khalq, the act of creation, as a result of divine command, because that's how it happens in our world, not in the same way, but not in a comparable way, but still we think of something, then we make it, we cook it, we make it, we shape it, and through that we are given a sense of how creation is actually the result of a command. In the case of the divine commands, it's be and it is. For ours, a unit of way for us to understand and get a glimpse of the realm of the divine command, inshallah. So, as I had mentioned last week, the two realms of Amr and Khalq, of command, divine command, and the process of creation, and the creation as we witness it, as we see it, are combined within the human being. We have a ruh, we have a spirit, and we have a physical body. And remember in Surah 4 of Surah al-Sajdah, Surah 32, we are told that our Rabb is mentioned in Ayah 3. Actually, it's mentioned as your Rabb, but we are saying our Rabb because we are the audience. So our Rabb, we are told, is God who has created the heavens and the earth and all that is between them in 6 aeons, and is established on the throne of his almightiness. You have no protector and no intercessor other than him. Will you not then pay heed? In Ayah 5, we were told he governs the affair. That's the tadbir that the assignment was about. And the affair here is al-amr, yudabbiru al-amr. From actually the affair, from heaven unto earth, then it ascends unto him. Then the amr, the command, the results of the command ascends unto him in a day, and the same word is used, day. The 6 aeons are 6 days, and here also yom, whose measure is as 1,000 years of your reckoning. Such, and in Ayah 6 we are told, such is the knower of the unseen, alim al-ghaybi wa-shahada, and the seen, al-aziz al-rahim, the almighty, the merciful. So unless we confirm Ayah 5, that he governs everything from heaven to earth, and that everything ascends unto him, then we cannot know God, our Rabb, as the knower of the unseen realm of command, of Amr, and as well as the seen realm of creation. And we won't be able to confirm that he's indeed Aziz and Rahim, the Almighty, the Merciful. Here, the Almighty, the Merciful, the word in Arabic is a little bit, Al-Aziz is different than Al-Qadir or other names. Aziz has a connotation, both Aziz and Rahim at the end of the ayah are names that can be appreciated more with Iman. Aziz, which is translated as mighty or powerful, it also has a connotation of exalted, distinguished, precious, valuable, beloved, cherished, which usually we don't associate with my almighty and cherished? It doesn't. So Aziz is not only mighty, but he is also exalted, precious, and beloved, cherished. And these qualities can be appreciated through Iman. So we understand it not only to point to Qudra, to his might, to his power in the creation, when we were listening to how voice is produced. And we take it for granted that, yes, air is making it, but sometimes we lose our voice. There is still air, but it's not working. So there is might there, but there is also the perfection and the beauty of divine might as it manifests with rahmah, with mercy, with compassion in a beautiful way, with different beautiful names. And the same goes for the divine name Rahim, translated as merciful, compassionate. You don't know how to translate it because even Rahman is sometimes translated as merciful. What is sure is both of them are related, both Rahman and Rahim derived from the word Rahma, which means mercy, compassion, loving tenderness. It's much more comprehensive than just mercy. There is one difference. I think when we studied Surah Al-Fatiha, we talked about the many nuances and differences between the two names, Rahman and Rahim. But one of them, particularly one difference, is that Rahim looks to the believers. And in the Quran, we are told, وَكَانَ بِالْمُؤْمِنِينَ رَحِيمًا. So, and he's Rahim to the believers, we are told in the Quran. Apart from this, so Rahimiyya, that looks to Rahim, is more subtle. It's a rahmah that is specific to the believers in the sense that it is perceived with the insight of Iman, of belief. Even though in the same event, you will have Rahman and Rahim both reflected, but most people can see the Rahmah, the Rahman, even if they don't believe in Rahman, they will see the Rahmah generally. They will see compassion in an event, but the believer will see Rahimiyya, something that looks to Rahim. So it looks to the believer's inner state of being, the state of their hearts. The nurturing, for instance, of their Iman is also a Rahimiyya. The beautifying them, the guiding them, guidance is from Rahim. Rahman and Rahim, but Rahim particularly, the believer is going to be aware of it. And maybe that's one of the wisdom, the hikmah in the word, the term Rahim is mentioned about twice as many times as Rahman in the Quran. There is another difference between them, which is interesting. Rahman, so the difference between them is not only how they are used in the Quran, but also linguistically. The word Rahim is an adjective, and it is used only as an adjective in the Quran, whereas Rahman is used as both adjective and as a noun, like in Surah Al-Rahman. It's a noun there. And it is used as an adjective, Rahman. When it is used as an adjective, it is always together with Rahim. It means people see Rahmah, but they will see it as pertaining to the Rahman only when they are believers, in which case they will see the Rahman and Rahim together. So Rahim, linguistically, being an adjective on the wazn, in the form of fa'il, like alim, it expresses something perpetual, perpetuity, permanence. So it's the permanence of compassion, meaning he sustains his creation in compassion and nourishes his creatures with compassion, not only here and now, but constantly, always. This is what we understand from Rahim. Rahman is like everywhere. Rahim has a connotation of perpetuity, of permanence as well. So Rahim indicates the constant doing of an action, of the action of how do you say, giving rahmah or bestowing rahmah. And so it expresses, Rahim expresses the manifestation of rahmah in God's creativity or in his creation, with the dimension of permanence that looks to, if it looks to permanence, it looks to eternal life, it looks to akhirah. And that's the believer's perspective. So God is Rahim, means that God is perpetually, constantly merciful. It looks not only to this life, but also to eternal life. And that's why Rahim has been interpreted as referring to God's special compassion for the mu'minin, for the believers, which transcends the worldly, transcends the world of creation, looks more to the hereafter, and also more to spiritual blessings, not only the needs of the physical body, but the needs of the heart and the needs of the ruh that can't be perceived with the physical eye, but with insight, with the ruh, the heart will perceive them. Those are blessings that look to the name Rahim, particularly. And you see in the Quran, they are usually Rahim comes together with Ghafurun Rahim. So who is going to ask for make istighfar and ask for forgiveness? The believer. Tawwabun Rahim. Who makes tawbah to God, repents, is the believer. Ra'ufun Rahim, loving, and Wadudun Rahim, loving and Rahim. And here, Al-Aziz Al-Rahim, for instance. And Aziz comes with Rahim, but also with Hakim. And we've seen, I think, Aziz with Hakim before. It appears, I think, mostly the first combination is Aziz and Hakim, Al-Aziz Al-Hakim. And with other names as well. In Surah Al-Shu'ara, Surah 26, 9 times this has always attracted my attention, and once I looked at it a little bit, but I never really studied it, which is the expression, the phrase وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الرَّحِيمُ, and surely your Rabb, your sustainer, is the one who is the Almighty, the Rahim, the merciful. And this is 9 times in one single surah, subhanallah. So I just, the fact that Rahim, Aziz, is almighty, but also beloved and cherished, and has an aspect that looks to wisdom and to rahmah. And then Rahim comes after it, which can only be perceived. It has a connotation of not only what we would perceive as physical blessings, but also spiritual blessings that can only be perceived through Iman. So this was just to get a glimpse of how the use of the Quran, the language in the Quran itself, is an ayah. It constitutes an ayah, a sign to meaning from beyond. The fact that these particular words, these particular names of God are mentioned here, is also an ayah that those who know, who are going to confirm that God is the knower of the unseen as well as the seen, only them can confirm and witness that he is Al-Aziz Al-Hakim, Al-Rahim. In ayah 7 to 9, we learn that our Rabb, remember, it was our Rabb, it became God who creates and does and does. Now we are told our Rabb God makes most excellent everything that he creates. Thus he begins the creation of human being out of clay. Then he causes him to be begotten out of a humble fluid. And then he forms him in accordance with what he's meant to be and breathes into him of his spirit, his God's spirit. And he endows, and God endows you with hearing and sight and afida and feelings as well as mind, yet how seldom you are grateful. So an example, in ayah 7, we are told he creates, God makes whatever he creates, he makes it most excellent. You want an example to reflect on? Look at your own creation. How he begins the creation of human being out of clay, then out of a humble fluid. It's humble. So ayah 7 and 8, it mentions the process of creation of human being in stages and out of matter, clay, and low, humble fluid. It means also look at where it starts. Like if you stuck in the physical side, then the physical side on its own, the matter, doesn't have much value, doesn't have much, how would you say, significance, importance in our own standard. But then what makes human beings so excellent comes the description in ayah 9. It says, then he forms him in accordance with what he is meant to be. So there is already here the formation, the sawah, which means giving form and a completion. It becomes a complete whole being. And then breathes into him of his spirit. So already when we are told he forms him, the form already cannot be explained in terms of matter alone. It is not matter. Matter is taking a particular form to, so we are given now, this is a sign, this is an ayah to amr. Of course, God, because God is speaking directly, the amr is involved. We formation happens with amr. We, as the audience, we are at the other end of the spectrum. We look at the creation, we look matter, and then things coming seemingly from nowhere, and then they start being built into something that at the end becomes a human being. It has the form of a human being, and then it starts breathing, and with breath comes life, and then hearing, sight, and feelings and minds come together with that spirit. Subhanallah. So you can see how the process of creation is happening through the command of be, and it is. Although it seems like it's taking stages, but actually it is the direct result of his command, of his will, of his will, his desire. we are as He wills. The fact that we are created out of fluid is not only at the beginning, actually right now, we are created out of clay and fluid. That's why we're told in the ayah, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. We've made out of water every thing, we made it living. Will they not then believe? أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Can they see that there is a divine command going on here, holding this process? So when we look at the human body, we're told it's 60%, but in weight-wise, our cells consist of 65 to 90% of water, H2O. And so that means most of our body's mass is oxygen and carbon and some other basic minerals like, hydrogen, of course, and there is nitrogen and calcium and other traces, and phosphorus and traces of others. And that's the traces of everything that exists in the soil, in earth, in clay. Clay is earth plus water, anyways. So it's not only at the beginning. Right now, we are sustained, maintained in life. Our physical body is mainly water. Then He forms us, and that from there starts, we can see directly there that it can't be matter. Matter cannot do this. Matter is sustained, itself is sustained. Water itself is sustained as water, as a molecule of water, or oxygen as an atom of oxygen, through a divine command. Because without motion, without the divine command be, there will be nothing. So the ruh, which belongs to the command, we are told here, is breathed into this humble physical body. And now we can see how we are the combination of the two worlds. We are created with the ability to witness how the process of creating proceeds from the command, and how the resulting creation glorifies God, how the resulting creatures glorify God, because they're the very act of creation, the way things are formed, that itself is a glorification. That's what a glorification is. That's an ayah. And therefore it goes back to God, because it's claiming, I belong from there, I came from there. It's like, actually, when you look at it energetically, what we call structures, we think everything is made of atoms, but atoms are actually made of vibrating energy, and vibrating energy is motion, and motion is just that, motion. So is electricity and everything. So without that amr, there is nothing. So what we think, what we perceive as something very solid, very like the basis, the fundament of everything, is actually only made to look to us like this. It's actually the embodied divine command. This is important because it could seem that, the creation is, or let me say it in a positive way then. the creation, let me say it this way, is not the result of the so-called laws of nature. And then sometimes there are miracles, like the miracles of the Prophet, and then suddenly fire, which naturally, I'm using naturally between brackets, suddenly fire, which naturally burns, as a miracle, it doesn't burn. Why? Because it received amr from God, the divine command to not burn. That's not how it works. And I've read many, I'm saying this because I've read people thinking that amr pertains, yes, khalq is the result of amr, but when it came to individual events, it was like, or like the miracles of the Prophet, it was like, it was, how do you say, something special. Special in the sense that God had to give a new command. No, everything is the result of divine command. And so Imam Nursi, Imam Badiou Zaman Said Nursi rahimahullah, he says, if fire responds to the divine command of be cool and peace on Ibrahim alayhi salam, this means that it burns. If it stops burning by divine command, it means that it burns by divine command. So it is never out of the divine command. So it's not like generally Hulk creation proceeds from the divine command, but one by one they belong to the laws of nature. There is no such thing. Laws of nature is just a name we give to the order, to Sunnatullah, to the way God creates things. So fire cannot and does not exist except through the divine command. So it's burning and it's not burning are the result of the divine command. And if we can't witness this reality, it's because we have not reflected on the issue enough. Because we've been taking the creation for granted. But if you start thinking about it, and that's why we had the assignment on tadbir, that we will see there is no way things are happening on their own. Tadbir is there definitely showing that everything is happening by divine command. It is his tadbir, he's the mudabbir, and therefore fire burns by his command and stops burning by his command. This is very important, very liberating, very empowering, because we are not the prisoners of some blind laws of nature. There is no such a thing as laws of nature. We just call them so. There are only laws of the divine names manifesting in a particular order, and that order is by no means deterministic, by no means does not change. And so every event being the result of the divine command is a miracle. And when we reflect, then speaking is a miracle, breathing is a miracle, everything is a miracle. Miracle means it points directly and reflects and mirrors the divine command there. The command of the mudabbir, the one who is administering the whole creation. And that event, like my breathing or my speaking, is happening in interconnection with the whole creation, the past and the future, whatever we imagine, here and now, always. And so that's why we're told he has given you, you can see he's given you form, and then he brings into you of his spirit, and then he endows you with hearing and sight and afida. I took one translation that says feelings as well in mine, yet how seldom you are grateful. Of course, we are not grateful, or we are not grateful enough because we do not grasp the immensity of the miracles within miracles that we are experiencing on, let's say, on a daily level, but actually it's more than a daily level. It's always, everything that's happening is a miracle. And how are we supposed to give thanks? Mainly by using our hearing, our sight, our afida for the purpose of their creation. And that's possible to the extent that we live from the ruh. Now, this afida is, I think we talked about it once in the past. It is usually translated as heart, but actually, there are many levels of the heart mentioned in the Quran. For instance, there is sadr, the most external one, the chest. There is qalb, the heart. There is fu'ad, and there is the fu'ad is more like the inner heart, and lub is the innermost heart. And usually, most of them are going to be translated as heart in English. The sadr, the chest, is where it corresponds to surrender. That's where Islam happened, when the willingness to surrender happens, not within the heart, but before. And we are told in the Quran that it is God who opens our chest wide open. When we are willing to surrender, he opens our chest. In another one, we are told, أَفَمَنْ يَشْرَحْ لَهُ اللَّهُ صَدْرَهُ. Oh, we are told God opens up wide open the chest of those who are willing to surrender. But those whose hearts are hardened against the remembrance of God, they won't surrender, and they are obviously lost in her error. So in order for our chest to be open to the surrender to God, to Islam, we need to remember God. So remembering God is important. How can we remember God if we don't see him in what's going on? If we think things are happening naturally, then it will be difficult to remember God, because even if we remember him, we are not convinced, because that remembrance won't be a true remembrance. It will be just a claim. Remembering God means remembering him, knowing him as our Rabb, and therefore, when I witness his rububiyyah in everything, when I witness things as ayat, when I start reflecting and understanding the messages and the meanings of the ayat, then everything will start reminding me of him. That's how we remember God. Otherwise, even if I say God, 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 good intention, but I don't see him anywhere, actually, deep down, I'm saying God, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure because it seems like things are happening themselves. That water is giving me life, giving life to the earth or to the plants, because without water, they die. If I'm at that stage, I'm not going to really remember God. And the heart starts getting hardening. So when we start reflecting, the heart starts opening, starts softening, and we start seeing God in everything. The heart starts functioning for the purpose of its creation. At the level of the sadr, of the chest, we are still unaware of the nature of our hearts. That's why it is described as the chest, and we are told the hearts are in the chest. Interestingly also, Satan does not whisper into the heart. The heart is protected because it is in the chest. Satan whispers fi sudurin nas, in the chest of people, which is good. We are protected. The heart is protected. So the heart is pure. It is created to recognize the creator, to be a means for the ruh, to be a mirror for the ruh, or like a gate between the ruh and the world, like a bridge between the world of command and the world of creation. So it is created pure and it is protected, and it's up to us to keep it sound or to corrupt it. And if we don't keep it sound, it becomes sick. We are told, في قلوبهم مرض, there is sickness, there is disease in their hearts. But we can choose. So Satan doesn't have access to us. He whispers. That whispering does not go into the heart, it stays in the chest. And it's up to us to use it, to send it back, and to recognize the truth better, and to be able to increase in awareness and in iman, or we fall for it and follow it, and it enters, then we open the heart to it. We start, and the marad, the sickness, is, for instance, sickness and a hardening of the heart. Some of the sicknesses of the heart are, for instance, jealousy and greed and things like that. And they are based on beliefs. Jealousy is a belief that in scarcity, that why does this person has something that I don't have? If I'm a believer, that will be a sign that God gives this kinds of blessing. So if you like it, you ask for it as well. But that's, so how, you see how the waswasa, how is the waswasa? The whispering of Satan does not come into the heart, but if I believe it and take it in, then it becomes it breeds illness into the human heart, and some of the illnesses are greed and jealousy and things like that. And we are told explicitly in an ayah that God makes Satan's whispering a temptation for the sick of heart and those whose hearts are hard. And we know the people whose hearts are hard are those who do not remember God constantly. And then they become wrongdoers, we are told. And so the second level is the qalb, the heart. This one is actually, the heart can be translated as heart, which it is. And it is called qalb because in Arabic, qalb is from qalaba, something that changes. The root word means something that turns around, something that changes easily. And this is because the nature of the human heart changes constantly. It's not because it changes. And that's the only way we can recognize the myriad of manifestations of Rububiyyah in the world, and the beautiful names in all different degrees and all their varieties, because we have this human heart that changes constantly. So the heart is called qalb because it fluctuates, yaqlub, with the manifestations of the divine names in the world. And the heart can be salim, sound, or it can be sick, diseased. It can be live, we are told in the Quran, it can be dead. When there is no iman, the heart is dead. It means the humanity in that person is dead. It all depends on the belief that the person upholds. So the heart is the mirror of the essence of a human being. It's the mirror to the ruh. And it plays a very crucial role in actualizing our ubudiyah, our worship. That's why the Prophet ﷺ says, in the body there is a lump of flesh, and if that lump of flesh is sound, the entire body is sound. And if it is corrupt or diseased, then the whole body is diseased. Ala wa hiya al-qalb. And truly that is the heart. And so he's not talking only about the physical heart, primarily he's talking about the emotional heart. And that's why we see there is a dua, a supplication of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the Prophet Ibrahim, where he says, it says, do not put me to shame on the day where we shall be raised from the dead, and on the day which wealth will not be, wealth and children will have no use, no benefits, and the day when only those who come to God with a sound heart will be happy. So coming to God with a sound heart is very important. Ibrahim as-salam prays to God to raise him, to resurrect him with a sound heart. It means, as we are told in another hadith, you die as you live, you are resurrected as you die. So if we want to be resurrected with a sound heart, we have to live with a sound heart. And even for taqwa, for God consciousness, the Prophet ﷺ said, taqwa is here, pointing to his chest. It is in the chest, in the heart. And even ta'aqqul, even true reasoning, true understanding is a function of the heart, the sound heart, the heart, that the believing heart. So the heart has been given to us to comprehend, to reflect, to reason. And it is where when we comprehend, when we reflect, when we reason properly, then Iman is gifted to that heart. That heart is filled with belief. And then when it's filled with belief, then it is built with sakina, tranquility. But if there is disbelief, there is no true understanding, no comprehension, there is confusion, there is no tawakkul. For the heart with belief, there is tawakkul, there is khushu'. They are all functions of the heart in the Quran. And we are even told that the heart gets rusty, and so it needs to be purified through the remembrance of God. And when you don't remember God, then not only the heart is rusted and gets hard, but as Satan you become friend with the Satan that is always with you. So remembering God is the first thing. And remembering God is possible when we start recognizing the ayat in the world. Wherever we turn, there is Tamma wajh Allah, there is the face of God, there is the ayat of God. They speak to us, they are our friends. We become like all together, like an orchestra, as Imam Nursi says, glorifying God together. Our seeing them, our witnessing their glorification becomes our glorification, becomes our ibadah. And also, we are told when people deviate from the right path, God causes their heart to deviate as well. Subhanallah, because the deviation is already coming from the heart and it deviates more. So we have to be careful about preserving our heart and nourishing those feeling of awe, of recognizing the ayat, of when we recognize beauty, when we recognize compassion, when we recognize something that is we know that is related to the creator, to the divine, then we need to stay with it. Because sometimes we just pass by and say, oh yes, it was nice, and then go. No, this is the opportunity. That's why you've been created. Stay there, stay with it, taste it, acknowledge it, recognize it. So qalb is important because it is the seat of all this, and it is the seat of Iman. We are told, Allah habbaba ilaykum al-iman wa zayyanahu fi qulubikum. It is God who has endeared Iman, belief, to you and has beautified it in your heart. It feels good to you. If it is related to the heart, it is related to feelings and emotion. And the heart can be blinded and hardened as a result of constant denial. And we are told, إِنَّمَا تَعْمَى, blinded, because we were told, and the heart which are within the chests are blinded. It is not the eyes that are blinded, but the heart which are within the chest that are blinded. فإنها لا تعمى الأبصار ولكن تعمى القلوب التي في الصدور. And then comes the fu'ad, which this ayah is talking about, ayah 9 of Surah al-Sajdah. Al-af'ida is the plural of fu'ad. And fu'ad comes from a root that means burning or flame, that is used when the heart is inflamed with emotion. It means the heart is throbbing with very intense emotions. That's why it is also used to refer to the power of discernment, fu'ad. It is used in the Quran to describe the heart of the mother of Musa alayhi salam. So in the same ayah, in the beginning, in the English, you will see heart appearing twice. But in fact, in the Arabic, first there is fu'ad, then there is qalb. First there is fu'ad because we're told her fu'ad became void. There was a void in the heart of the mother of Musa. She was almost going to disclose her case and his case, that's her baby, had we not strengthened her heart. The second one is qalb, because she put the newborn baby into a basket, put it into the Nile, and then she was full of fear, and she was full of worry, of sadness, whatever the feelings of a mother who has just left her newborn baby in a river. We can only imagine how inflamed with emotions she is. So that situation is mentioned as fu'ad, and afterwards God has strengthened her qalb. So she doesn't tell the truth and they will kill him as well. So a heart is called fu'ad when there is a sense of burning emotions. And it is used to highlight how much the burning heart has an ability to affect things. When a flame burns, it can burn. It can burn things around it, but it can also be like a light. People can, if there is no connection with God, no iman, a person's jealousy can cause havoc in a family or with among friends or something. But if there is iman, then those burning emotions can become like a light, because now the emotions are related back to, we recognize that they are coming as an ayah from Amr, and we listen to the message, and now that message is going to enlighten our life, and inshallah maybe the life of those who are connected to us in a way. And that's why fu'ad, the inner heart, corresponds to gnosis, to ma'rifah, because it's only when we have those burning emotions that we know something truly. And that's why we are told ما كذب الفؤاد ما رأى, when the journey of Mi'raj, of the ascension of the Prophet al-Isra is mentioned, then we are told what he saw there, the fu'ad, the inner heart, did not lie in seeing whatever it saw. So here it's a different level of knowing. It is when the fu'ad is involved. It is, remember we talked about knowing, like you can read about honey, you can read about it and see a picture, you can see the real thing, you can touch it, then you can taste it. So fu'ad is like about this tasting the names of God. And then comes lub. Lub is the kernel, the innermost kernel of the heart, where genuine tawheed is going to be realized. I think we did talk about it when we saw it. It usually comes in the expression li'ulil albab, and inshallah in the future, if we see it, we'll talk about it. So as far as we learned from this surah so far, there is a descent. The Quran is sent down. The Ruh is breathed onto us, as we're told in Ayah 9 and elsewhere in the Quran as well. And our body is being sustained here and now and always. And when we look casually, we may think it's happening like that. That is how creation is. But when we look carefully, then we realize that the process of coming into being, the process itself, the stages, like the stages of the creation of human being itself, mirrors the tadbir, the administration, the governing, the forming, the bringing into being in wisely, with order and everything. And that's why we need to look more carefully and reflect on the creation and on the tadbir in the creation. And then we will realize how in each stage, although things seem to unfold in stages, each stage is the result of the command be and it is. And then we start noticing the realm of the melekut, the aspect of things that look to the command, that look to, for instance, there is shape, there is a shaper. There's form, someone is giving form. There is color, someone is giving color. There is an internet connection with everything else. There is tadbir, there is wisdom, there is compassion, there is nurturing, there is sustaining. And so all the beautiful names start unfolding when we realize that aspect that looks to the divine command, be and it is, that look to the realm of the Melekut. We called it Melekut before, to the beautiful names of God. And if eventually we become more and more convinced that they are the recipient of the divine command, and as such they are like the mirror to the divine attributes. And I think last week we talked about water going everywhere and acting perfectly and being inanimate itself and lifeless. It's clearly acting at the command of someone who knows, someone who gives life, someone who is using it in that way. In Ayah 5, we are told that then it ascends, everything ascends unto him in a day whose measure is 1,000 years of your reckoning. So the ascending, the Amr ascends back to him. When we witness the ayat in the world of creation, when we are convinced that the world around us is his act of creating, it is the result of his Amr, of his command, be and it is, then we start witnessing the glorification of beings around us, the tasbihat of being around us. They are proclaiming the divine names. Water is saying, I am lifeless. With its lifelessness, it is saying, I cannot be, I am not the source of life. La ilaha, la muhyiya. There is no giver of life except him, the one who is giving life to everything through me, a lifeless water, is the giver of life. So that's their glorification, that's their tasbihat, that's their shahada, their witnessing. And as I said before, our awareness increases and we start living, which means we begin to live more from the ruh, from the spirit. And it is the ruh in us that recognizes the aspect of the creation that looks to the command, because it itself is from the command, it recognizes the command out there. It itself has been taught the divine names. We are told God breathed into you and taught you the names. That's why it has that innate ability to recognize the beautiful names of God in the creation. In the creation, they are in the creation, but they are not in the same at the same level. They are the reality is multi-layered. Like human being is not only flesh and bones. We start seeing, it's like someone coming, an alien coming from another universe, let's say, and thinking that we are physical things only. We will laugh at it. We say, like, what makes us who we are is mainly our ruh and our hearts and our emotions and thoughts and everything. Not how we look, the body from outside. The body keeps changing anyway from childhood to adulthood and even beyond. And it's the same when we look at the beings around us. We tend to, for some reason, because of our lack of awareness, we take them for as if it's only matter. But matter that has a form, and the form is beautiful, and that beauty incites loving from me. So our interaction with that thing can't be just a physical thing. There is something else in that. A tree is something more than just the the wood and the leaves, and a mountain is more than just rocks, and an ocean is more than just water, etc. We start recognizing the angelic part of things. We have a ruh, they have a representative angel, which the angel is the what receives the command of being and embodies it in the world. I can't find a better way of saying it. So after we witness the descent, we participate in the tasbihat. We start glorifying everything together. And that's when our ascension, our mi'raj starts. And then we realize that everything is the way they are created. They are glorifying God. The glorification are always going back to Him. And so when people like a mountain, a tree, even if they like the tree for itself, their liking stays with the tree, but the real appreciation goes to the creator of the tree. And we are told that in different parts of the Quran, but just to understand that everything goes back to Him because it belongs to Him, and it is glorifying and Him with His beautiful name, praising Him. And so when the ascension of our ruh starts, our own ascension starts, the more we ascend, the more we will witness the ascension of everything, of all the aspect of things that look to God and that is always constantly going back to Him, pointing back to Him. And that's why we're told here that it ascends. And we are told it ascends in a day whose measure is 1,000 year of your reckoning. So the 1,000 year here is relative. And there is another ayah in Surah Al-Ma'arij, the ways of ascent, and where we are told the angels and the ruh and the spirit ascend to Him in a day whose length is like 50,000 years. So is it 50,000 years or is it 10,000 years? Actually, it's neither. This ayat, this ayah number 5 and the ayah that I mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'arij, both of them, they are reminding us that time is relative. In our world of creation, in our world of khalq, it is relative. So can you imagine when it comes to the realm of the unseen, the realm of amr, of command? It cannot even apply there. We cannot compare the two realms. One is the creating, one is the creator. So in a sense, we realize that it is the delusion of our mindlessness. We forget, we take time for granted. And that's why this is a reminder to put us back in our place, because it says 1,000 years of your reckoning. It's our reckoning. Our reckoning, our calculation changes. In other words, like if you take what is a day here, it's relative to motion, to the motion of the earth. It's the time the earth takes to complete one full spin, one rotation, one spin around its own axis. That's what we call a day. So a day is 24 hours. Again, 24 hours is our own how would you say? It's a unit of measurement. It's not something that exists out there. We say 24 hours. How much does it take the Earth to rotate around itself? This much. Let's call it 24 hours. It's a name. If you take the moon, for instance, it takes it almost 30 days to rotate around its own axis. It's much slower. So a moon day is 30 days of Earth day. So even in the world of creation, day changes from one place to another because it's relative to the motion of something. And so this is a way to realize that the notion of day that we take for granted is actually not written in stone. It's just a measurement. It's a tool for us to, we can talk to each other. We can talk about time. We can say, let's meet at this time and that time. But actually, when we say day, it's just a convenient way of, measuring things. It's like a mapping. It's not,
It's a convention, you mean?
Yeah, we can say it's a convention among ourselves. And we don't say a day, an Earth day, because we all live in Earth. But if we start going to sometimes on the moon, sometimes here, we say which day, Moon day or Earth day, for instance. It's like time. We say Eastern time or Central time, something like that. But we forget. We take it like, what do you mean? 1,000 years now, 50,000 years? How many years? But actually, years is here. It's reminding us that it's something relative. It's also, so from one, and reminding us that it's only our reckoning, as it's saying. And from another perspective, it can be also reminding us of timelessness. It's an ayah. 1,000 years is an ayah to timelessness. When we think of timelessness, we can only think of, like children, you say, how many days? You say you will go there, then we'll sleep and wake up, we'll sleep and wake up, we'll sleep and wake up, and then we'll come back home. That's how they understand day when they are very little. And so in the beginning, for us to understand timelessness, we say thousands and thousands of years. And although we cannot live it, we have a glimpse of it. So because ruh, being directly from Amr, from the divine command, unlike our physical being, it is not confined by, limited by creation and therefore by time. So it is closer to timelessness. Amr is be, it is instantaneous, there is no time. And we can understand this a little by thinking of our sleep state. When we are asleep, the ruh is not limited by the physical body. And so in our dream, we can accomplish lots of things. We can travel around, and it feels like a long time in the dream, yet physically, it's few seconds. They say that the dream sometimes only lasts few seconds, but in the dream, it feels like we did lots of things. Now, the people who live from the ruh, they experience a similar situation in their wake state. For instance, they can read the whole Quran in what seems like minutes or 1 hour to us in our reckoning. Remember, in the dream, we can do lots of things. Because the ruh there is free, it goes beyond time. In our reckoning, from our perspective, it seems like it was just a short time. The more people live from the ruh, the more they experience something like that. And that's why it's known as Bast al-Zaman, the expansion of time in the Islamic literature. I'm not talking about the physics extension of time and things, because dilatation of time, because there it's in physics it's about speed and about the curve of gravity, about the force of gravity. But in physics, we're talking about both of them are in the space of khalq, of creation. Even in the space of creation, if you go faster, you experience time. Time passes slower. So it's relative. But here, the other more important area sign here is that the God is beyond time. He is not subject to creation. And because Ruh is closer to the divine command, so it is the farthest away from the confinement and the limits of the creation and therefore of time. It can have a glimpse of timelessness in the sense that for it, time can expand. There is the barakah of time. And that's why the more we practically I always say, like, take time, pause, reflect, and slow down. Even if in the beginning, even if we haven't yet learned to reflect, just to slow down, to pause, in order to take a break from the busy world of khalq, of time, of creation, and give a break to the heart and to the ruh is very beneficial. We can take those breaks, for instance, with the 5 daily prayers. No hurrying. We can intend no hurrying while making wudu and praying. Slow down intentionally. You will realize that the slower our motion, the more able we are to be focused. The more we are focused, the more time seems to expand. There is barakah in time. Usually people get nervous when it seems like time is not passing. People get nervous and very quickly they want to find something to do. And if they can't do, if you tell them sit down, they start imagining, thinking. They are not present in the moment anymore. They start going in the past, in the future, somewhere else. And that's because we find suddenly ourselves in a void, because we have not yet found that connection to God, that connection that is like an umbilical cord to the ruh, that nurture and nourishes the spirit and the heart. And when we haven't found it, we suddenly panic and we don't stay there. But in the beginning, stay there, and then you start tasting it. It starts in the beginning, it's because we are not used to. But the more we pause, and if when we are contemplating, you can see, when we contemplate, we can't contemplate and we are hurrying. When we contemplate, automatically we slow down. And when we slow down, suddenly, subhanallah, times, as if a tunnel of time opens up suddenly, like the quantum tunneling. And then suddenly there is a barakah of time. What seems like 5 minutes usually, even if you put the timer on, but that 5 minutes is so full of barakah. It's so long. And that's why when people are in a hurry, they tend to move faster and they panic. It seems like, if we think we are in a hurry for something, we think we need to move faster. And that's because we are in a state of panic. It seems that time is not enough. And there is, together with this, there is the imagination, the delusion that when they are active, when they are acting fast, they are going to produce more. The results will be more. Why? Because there is the assumption, the false assumption, that they are the active creators of their actions, of their doings. They are the source of their doings. And so it seems, if they are the creator, the source of their doings, then the more you move, the faster you move, the more results you achieve. But that, in fact, is not true. It's an illusion of mindlessness. The reality is that we are receivers. We do something, the result is not from us. The result is a divine gift, and especially when it is new creativity, when it's something we are used to. Anyway, we don't panic, we act on automatic. It's a malaka. It is done onto us. Like when you are speaking and driving and walking, it's a malaka. That's why we need to reflect on it to realize that it's done onto us. But when we think I need to write something, I need to make a decision or something, if it is the right thing you are doing, if it's creative, if it is new, it is not from you. It is, we are being inspired, we are recipient to the divine gifts. That's why original ideas are, people don't get them when they are in a panicky state usually. It's when they relax or when they give up that the heart becomes open to receive something new, to receive the inspiration. When we forget something, however, instinctively, fitratan, what we do when you forget something, we don't carry on. If we are walking, we don't go walk faster. We slow down or we stop even. So our first response is to slow down. And there is a connection between slowing down and remembering. Remembering means receiving something. Even if we knew it before, if it left, we have to remember it. Where is it? It's not in our head. Our head has only the traces. Our head is not. Anyway, let's not go there. And speeding and getting busier is related to forgetting. And that's why when we are too busy in our life, we tend to forget our true life purpose, why we are here on earth. And that's why we need those 5 daily prayers. We need to make them into real reflecting breaks, slowing down, remembering our true life purpose, inshallah, so that our prayer becomes our ascension, our mi'raj, as the Prophet ﷺ says. So ghafla is linked to forgetting what we are here for in this world. If we learned it, if we knew it, if we don't, it's total ignorance. And it is related to speeding up. We want to faster, fill the schedule. We don't want any empty time. Even if we have empty time, we're going to watch something, do something, talk about something, even if it's nonsense, but we don't want to have emptiness, because in that emptiness is where we are going to realize that this world is transient, and we go back to the beginning, which is it's the only door to permanence is transience. But we run away from it by keeping ourselves busy. And so there is more stress, and stress is a form of fear. But the more there is awareness, there is remembering, then there will be slowing down, there is a relaxing, there is barakah, there is sakina, peace. And that's why we need to do more of that, more slowing down, more. And you will see the barakah not only in that time, but the barakah in the rest of the day. In between the prayers also will be full of barakah. Not only physically, but more importantly, spiritually. So even physically, when we feel, personally, when I feel there's no time, like, oh, I have only half an hour, I need to finish this, then it's time for istighfar. Because we start, our first reaction is to panic and start moving fast. And then I catch myself and say, astaghfirullah, you are not the creator. Slow down. I am the recipient. I am a channel to divine blessings. I am not the active source of anything. So I make istighfar, I recognize who I am, and I am now ready to receive and be grateful. That's why it says at the end of the ayah 9, and yet seldom are you grateful. Because it feels like we are doing things. Like, okay, from time to time, something special happens, we are grateful, and then the rest of the time, we are not. But actually, my breathing is, I can be grateful 24/7, it will never be enough. So I can only intend to be grateful all the time. And that's why Imam Ali, radiallahu anhu, he says, to the بعدد ما خلقت وبعدد أوراق الأشجار وأمواج البحار وقطرات الأمطار. I praise and thank God to the number of leaves in the world, to the number of droplets of rain, and etc. So much he realized that being just saying I'm grateful, feeling grateful 24/7 is not enough, because the blessing is many, many myriads and myriads of times greater than we can ever imagine. So when we slow down and focus inside instead of being distracted, we're more likely to be receptive of inspiration. And then when we mindfully, meaning intentionally, slow down and reflect on the tadbir, then we can testify, we can make the shahada that truly we are not active creators, we are receiving, and we are the recipient to creativity that is gifted to us. And when we start witnessing that we are like channels through which inspiration descends, the amr and the blessings descend through us, then we can consciously testify that there is no creator, no originator, no mudabbir, no administrator, no Rabb, no sustainer except God. And we thank him and we praise him with his beautiful names, because what we are actually experiencing are the beauty of his beautiful names. And this becomes for our ruh a mini mi'raj, an ascension onto him. Our praise is what goes back to him. That's why it says at the end, and yet everything ascends to him, but you don't thank. You say, what is thank to do with everything ascending to him? Yeah, if everything is ascending to him, my ascension to him, my glorification is my praise of him, my thanking him. Inshallah. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وادخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Jazakumullah khair. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question or make a comment at this time?
Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam.
This is Maha. Is it my turn or somebody else?
Go ahead, please.
Okay. I thought it was somebody else who should be speaking. I had a quick inquiry. Earlier in the session, you mentioned both Isra and Yamina were talking about focusing on what's coming rather than on separation. Do you find that what's coming is equal to what's been gone? So, for example, when you were speaking, my question was, I was curious, how many new friends have you made recently? And how many new friends do we make every day versus old friends, for example?
You are thinking of friends, then if you start with smaller things like your breathing, a new day, small things that we take for granted, then when it comes to friends, instead of a new friend that you've never seen, which is also possible, I start seeing my friend in a new way. I won't take my friend for granted. And I won't start, for instance, building today on the past, especially when it's something negative, because it's that person changed, everything changed. And when you approach with that this is a new being, a new day, a new friend, then that friend will surprise you. And maybe I shared once with you, I don't want to share the details here, about you actually. Remember? When we were in Bloomington.
About the coffee gathering?
Yes. Like I didn't know you. And from outside, I thought, okay, this is a lady from I did not judge until you invited me to have a coffee and meet separately, like both of us. And when I was going there, I was saying, do I have time for this? Now, this is a nice lady, but like God knows what she's going to talk about something. And then I found I caught myself into this. Can you imagine? And I said, Astaghfirullah, what are you doing? This is a new creation. Allah is opened a new, something new for you. This person, you think she is this, let's see what Allah is going to send with this friend. I mean, that time I didn't really know you. And I changed my intention and I made sure that intentionally I was open to receive the blessing and I was grateful for this new opportunity. And what I found there is a friend that is still one of my best friends, and it is an ocean of mercy. So who takes like the old friend is only what we think we know. It's not because the pain of separation is meaningless. It's because when we are living not from the ruh, but from the lower self, we only feel the pain of separation because it's painful, not because we know its meaning. And so when we use the pain of separation to wake up, then we start becoming aware of the flow of blessings and of creation, because creation comes with its blessing. Then we are more likely, and we need to, in the beginning, do it intentionally, focus on what is being given to us in the world, in our inner world, in our outer world, personally, and also the world around us. We take things for granted so much, and we take things for routine. I also shared an example was that time I was teaching at the university, and I had a routine schedule. And for some reason that day, I was thinking of God is constantly sustaining us and creating and everything. And how do it seemed to me, I was tired. It was the end of a long day of work. And I said, where is the new thing in this day? It seems, and part of me was saying, I knew it's a new day, but it seems so much the same as, for instance, if it was either Tuesday or a Thursday. It's like every Thursday, and I said this to myself, I remember that. Every Thursday I come, I have this class, that class, and then I walk back home, and I was going out of the office, and as I'm thinking this and I'm saying, Astaghfirullah, it seems similar, but it is different. And this lady in a huge car, it was cold by Lake Michigan, stops and insists that she gives me a ride. She said, it's so cold, how can you walk in this icy, it's very windy by Lake Michigan. It was very icy. And I said, I live very close, but she insisted. So, and it was the first time ever someone stopped. And so I got into the car, and then I told her, you can leave me at the corner because the house is in an, how do you call, an impasse. No, she insisted. What's the point? Since it's cold, what's the point of leaving you here? So she went until where I lived. And when she came there, she told me something. She said, oh, this is where I was going. So it was an apartment complex, and she was going to visit her friend, and her friend lived in the same apartment complex. But she said, I had mixed up, I had confused the way, and I was going to leave you and carry on. But because you happen to live here, now I recognize that it's the same place. So from her perspective, Allah made her, she was going to go around in that area, but she came directly where she was supposed to go. And the visitors' parking was full. So I told her, you can park in my space because I have extra space. After she parked, she told me, do you know my friend this and this? I said, no, I'm new, I don't know people here. So she said, let's go to, I'll introduce you to my friend. So I found myself at the time where I had said, I finishes this time, it's always the same, I go home, I do this, I do that. It was not true for that day. I found myself sitting with these two ladies, having tea with them, exchanging cards, making new friends. I had never seen that lady actually, she was also a foreigner in the same building. So you see, as if Allah said, it's not as you think. Well, these things happen from time to time, but even it's like the faces of human beings. They are all slightly different, but we tend to say, but they are all the same. Yeah, but they are not all the same. Or it's like, I remember someone, a friend's neighbor who was Chinese, told the friend, we were all like Middle Easterns. So he said, or she said, like it was a family, they said, your friends all look the same. And we started laughing when she said that to us, because we said, for us, they seem to all look the same. But mind you, after a while, when you get to know them, you realize that they don't look so much like each other. Yes, there is a resemblance, but you start recognizing people. And it's the same with the creation. We start recognizing, it's like the more acquainted we get to people, the more you realize, for him, all Middle Eastern look the same. For us in the beginning, all Chinese, Asian people look the same. When we get to know each other, oh, you say, they don't look all the same, they are all different. And it's the same from day to day, from hour to hour, from however much our awareness is expands, inshallah. And so even the same friend, you will discover ever new aspects of that friend, inshallah.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
Assalamu alaikum. Just wanted to thank Dr. Yamina for the perspective on about on the verses regarding the years. Usually, I don't know if I read for this translation, or usually those years in my mind are associated with the Day of Judgment. So, but this was so, I mean, different perspective, like looking at that kind of measurement about comparing it to a day if you live from the ruh, right? So if I understood it correctly, so thank you. So just looking for that.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Yamina,
Hi.
Fitra, Mahabari. This is Inaba. How are you?
Wa alaikum salam, mashallah, how are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Mashallah.
Could we talk about something that I'm trying to understand better within myself, which is when I feel like I am contemplating deeply upon the day that Allah has given me, and what I think I'm learning from it. And I think that's the thing. Sometimes I don't trust that I am learning what I should be learning from it. I think that my psyche is getting into this and mixing things up, or I'm making up stories that I want to tell myself about what has just happened. And sometimes those can actually be like something really beautiful that I think I've just learned, but then I say, but I don't know for sure that has really happened, and I need to back down a little bit about what I think that whatever new spiritual learning I think has maybe just taken place. And I'm wondering if that is, waswasa, that I'm not trusting the guidance, or am I potentially still cloudy in my judgment of what is a message coming from God and what is not, and I do need to be more cautious about what I am believing to be the way God is teaching me. And I'm wondering if you have any. So I'm wondering if we could discuss this about what it is that you think that you're learning from the day that God has given you. Do you trust it immediately? What do you do with it? How do I start to be a learner that recognizes when something is right, when it's my ruh that is teaching, that's coming from my ruh, or when it's not? Distinguishing between my ego and my spirit. That's my question.
It's It's a profound and long question. So I'm thinking how to give a shorter. I'm not going to really answer, but point maybe to the answer. Is first this.
Yamina, we can start with this next time. Is that a possibility?
That's just all a possibility. I'm sorry to give something so like this at the last moment.
Not really. It's 10:20 at this time, so but we can also continue a little bit.
Well, we can leave it to next week, and now just give like very short thing, which is it's about listening, and listening is something, in a sense, it's passive, in the sense that the active part is that I'm doing the La ilaha, there is no God. I am doing the stopping the distraction, stop being distracted, and that doesn't happen overnight. So we need to learn to listen, and when we listen, then we start being the recipient of the inspiration. We will know it is the answer. We will just know, because we are not making it up. We are not trying to understand something. Now, in order to get to that stage, what we are told to do in the Quran, to remember God. We are not told, try to understand the meaning of your day. That will be a side effect that comes with the awareness. But I don't start there. I start with remembering God in everything. And remembering God in everything is learning to practice La ilaha. It seems like water is feeding me, food is feeding me. La ilaha. They can't. Can you see? They are only themselves being made. That reflection is what I do actively. And illallah, if water is not giving me life and not feeding me and not sustaining me, illallah, I will understand it, I will realize it, I will witness it at different levels as I grow in my reflection. Illallah is a gift from God. The Iman is a gift from God. And as I grow into that awareness of knowing God, which is revealed onto me, but I am doing the La ilaha, I'm clearing the heart from the rust of not remembering God. So I'm doing my part. Then I don't ask what is the meaning of my day, but when day by day, but when something happened that attracts my attention, that attraction I am created with, that it attracting my attention is like the question is being asked through me. And if there is that curiosity is given to me, it means I'm being made to ask a question. It means there is an answer. And so I acknowledge that state of being, and I say, you know the answer, and the answer will come in ways that I will recognize that it is the answer. It is not me making it up, because I'm not cogitating, I'm not trying to understand. I am purely listening. But to come to that level, as I said before, I have to do the reflection, and the reflection is to remember God. And to remember God, I have to the reflection is there is no God. Water is not God. Money is not God. I am not God. The weather is not God. Whatever seems to be creating and doing something, I will question it. I will say it can't be doing it. Can it be? When I ask the question, the illusion will start crumbling, and the reality starts revealing itself to me. And then I come to a state where listening becomes easy, becomes actually something that's, it's like we take a break to have a meal, to drink water. That will be the break for the ruh to listen. But listening doesn't mean I have to have the answer to this, because the answer doesn't, I don't fabricate it, I don't make it up. That's why when it is needed, I trust that when it is needed, it will be revealed. Like when the baby is born, the milk will be given. I don't have to worry about what will happen when the baby is born. What if there is no milk? If it is needed, it will be given. I do my part, and then I trust for the rest. And then I won't have that, what if it's me making it up? Because I am not the one doing it actively. The active part is the making sure that things are not God's, and therefore witnessing again and again and confirming again and again that La ilaha illallah. And so when it comes to the meaning of particular things, when I do the listening, because I'm not actively involved in making it up, then I will recognize that I'm being inspired. And you will feel the excitement and the awe, and you will be filled with gratitude, inshallah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, so are there any questions or comments that anybody wants to make before we close? We can certainly note them down and move on to the next. Move on with them to the next session, please. If you have something, you're welcome to share. Okay, so then we will pause here for now, and inshallah we'll continue next week. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Yamina, and everyone else for joining us. And inshallah, do we have an assignment for this week, Dr. Yamina?
Just reflect on what has been. I think that's enough. If we can just reflect on what's been, what we read until Ayah 9. It's very loaded, mashallah.
Okay, inshallah. Jazakallah khair again. And salaam alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.